already there. It just stops the growth of it, and it doesn't affect any of the highway business district whatsoever.
Glenn Leslie, 16 Lindor Road. So, this doesn't stop anybody from doing something that they're already doing, but what about people that move in the future that want to do business? What can they erect for a sign? You said no neon. Does that mean if they take a regular sign that's illuminated with fluorescent lights behind it, that that's okay? Can you give examples of what's okay, Warren?
Any kind of a indirectly lit sign is preferable. If you go to any of the towns that have really put some time and effort into the historic districts or into their downtown areas, they've eliminated internally lit or neon type signs completely and gone to externally lit or indirect lit signs. They're far more pleasing to the eye. They don't generally infringe on the neighbors or on any residential properties, so it's a far preferable way to do it. If you drove through the downtown area, or what I call the downtown area of North Reading, which would be, say, from the high school across to where Park Street and Washington Street intersect there, a few years ago you saw no neon, and now it's starting to show up. And so in an attempt to prevent that from becoming a neon highway, especially a historic district, I don't think should have any more growth than what's already there. Primarily this is for the neon signs, yes, to keep them. If you do an indirectly lit sign of any kind, they're more artful, they're better, they're more in keeping with the character of a historic district or that older neighborhood that runs through there.
Mr. Harris.
And I've been told to give the majority report on this one. Well, the reason why I personally voted against this was because I'm a libertarian, and I don't really think that government really has a place telling you what kind of sign you can hang on your business.
Mr. Rowe.
Would this affect businesses that already have the signs there?
Mr. Pierce.
No. Any existing signs that exist right now can stay. I mean, anything that happened before the law, of course, has a grandfathered status to it. But with the growth, if you've been driving through, you see that suddenly it's beginning to grow, and again, I don't think that's the area for it.
Further discussion? This requires, it's a zoning change, requires a 2/3 vote. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Chair is in doubt if the tellers would step forward. All those in favor? Where's the motion? Mr. McGrath.
3-1.
Mrs. Colella.
38.
All those opposed?
Four.
5.
vote was 113 to... I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong number. The vote was 89 to 24. The motion fails. Did not carry the 2/3. It's also 11 o'clock. I apologize. Motion carries. There's 2 articles left.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town amend the code of the Town of North Reading zoning bylaws by adding a new Article 21, Affordable Housing Overlay District, and authorizing related amendments in the form filed with the Community Planning Office and Town Clerk, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of this bylaw be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the Code of North Reading.
We have the motion. Does the Board of Selectmen wish to make a recommendation? While they're thinking about it, there was a handout at the table for the Affordable Housing Overlay District that you could have obtained on your way in. And they have some at the back of the hall if you'd like one. They'll bring them to you. Just put your hand up, they'll bring one down. Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This affordable housing bylaw proposal that we put together has a couple of different intentions. In the year 2010, there'll be a new census that'll be taken. When that census is taken, they're going to count to see how many houses we have and whether or not we still make our 10% of affordable housing. Now, well, to backtrack just a little bit, all communities are required by the state to have 10% of their housing in their community to be affordable. We were quite a ways behind until the Berry property came along, and since all of those apartments over there are rental units, they all count. And essentially what that did is the development of that Berry property into apartments, it caught us right up to date. So basically we're not behind. When we were behind, we ended up with some projects like the projects on Central Street, the 40Bs that put large groups of housing into small areas. So, in 2010 when the census is done, we're going to come up short again. So what the planning board has done is put together an overlay district using town-owned properties to create some locations where affordable housing could be built. These locations only have to meet a very basic criteria at this point. We didn't try to, haven't been perk tested, and they haven't been checked for every possible thing, but they have met a certain basic criteria that allows them to be included in this. When we are behind again in 2010, probably by 2012, when it all shows up at town here, if a 40B developer comes in, they will be directed to one of these particular properties to develop. If we didn't have some kind of a plan in place, by the way, this also meets with our master plan. In our master plan, we also have the idea of putting together some properties that we can direct developers to. So what this does is provide some locations that we can direct a 40B developer to. Most of them are smaller pieces, so the net result is we won't get any huge developments, and in smaller pieces we'd be able to meet our obligation for the 10%. Because the town owns the property, it gives us a lot of control over what's developed there and how it's done. That's something that we don't have when a 40B developer comes in a normal situation. If a parcel shows up in this overlay district, it means that it does not mean that it will necessarily be developed. It just means that it's one of the parcels that we're going to offer up. Before any one of these parcels could be built on, there's a second layer of protection that would come. It would have to come back to town meeting and be voted on and approved. would also have to in the case of, if it has any variances or any other problems, it would have to go to the CPC or other boards. One of the questions I've been asked is, a lot of these parcels are small, and sometimes it will require the combining of more than one or two of these parcels, or two or three of these parcels, to create a parcel big enough to build on. And some of the people that have asked me questions have said, well, what if I want to buy that parcel? Approval under this particular overlay district does not take this parcel off the market. If there's an abutter that wants to buy it, they still have the opportunity to buy it. What this does do is place these parcels out there so that when the time comes that we're behind on our 40B, when the developer comes to us, we can say, these are the only places that we want you to build. And if they don't want to build in those places, they will go someplace else. This is a way of the town controlling any more of this kind of development that comes into our community. So it basically provides a defense against unwanted 40Bs. And it also means that if they don't like it, they go to the mass housing court. The housing court says this town has taken a proactive approach. They've provided you with places to build. If you don't like it, that's not their fault. We're not required to give them the best piece in the world. So this gives us a level of protection and control over the way this thing will come in the future, the way it'll be built in the future. And I think that kind of planning is what the planning board is supposed to do. Thank you.
Mr. Messeri.
The Board of Selectmen unanimously recommends.
Sir.
Tim Wing, 349 Haverhill Street. One question, this doesn't preclude a 40B developer coming into town and building anywhere they want. It just stops them from using town land to do that, is that correct?
No, sir. It does preclude them from building anywhere they want. Because we have a plan in place, we have a master plan, we have a master housing plan, and we have a plan for this kind of development. No, they have to now, one of the problems with 40Bs is you feel so helpless because they come in and they ride roughshod over you. But with what we have now, we control the game. We decide where they build and what they build, and we oversee the whole project because we own the land. And if they don't like it, they have to go to some other town. They can't force us to do anything other than what we've put together for them here. And because the total development of this community there's not much more building that's going to happen here. We're getting pretty built out. There's some pieces left, but we can probably, with the land that we have here, absorb the rest of that 10% that we need, and will never be put upon by them, or shouldn't be put upon by the 40B situation for many, many years.
Thank you.
Sir.
Charles Durham, One Gage Road. I noticed that there's been a number of properties that have been cut from the list, but on the diagram it's still showing listed.
I'm sorry?
On the property that's being shown, a number of properties have been cut from the original list. But yet
actually, what we did was, using the GIS system, we basically identified lots that met area and, according to the wetland maps, had little or no wetland on them, so they qualified. We then went out and actually looked at most of them and removed quite a few from the list. This is a culled down list. Being on this list doesn't necessarily mean that it will ever get built on. It doesn't mean that they've been perk tested or that, for example, any title issues have been cleared with them. It's just a suggested list. Before anything would happen with them, before anything would happen with any of these parcels, they will be a developer will come in and say, okay, I'm willing to build on that parcel. It would then come back to town meeting, go through approval process, all those things before it would ever be built on.
I understand that, but on your map, you're showing a property that's directly behind my house and right across the street, but it's not on the list.
It's not on the list?
Correct.
Well, the map might not have been updated when the list was, because there have been properties that have been removed. You are correct.
One last question. How would I find out what's been the determination on that property?
Call the planning board office during the regular business hours, and they'll be able to tell you. Because we did have quite a large number in the beginning, and we did go through quite a bit of effort to cull it down.